Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the adoption process. Adoption is a big deal in the US. According to the US Department of Health and Human Services, 391,000 children are living in the foster care system, and that number is increasing. In addition, over 113,000 of these children are eligible for adoption and wait 3 years on average for an adoptive family. This is also a very important issue for many women. When they become pregnant by accident, some women can choose to get an abortion if their pregnancies are very early. However, for the pregnancies that are advanced, abortion is very unsafe, so the only two options are to put the newborn up for adoption or become a parent. There are many reasons that some women choose to put their baby up for adoption over becoming a parent. For example, they are not ready to be mothers. They are not financially stable, their environment is not great, they are too young or still in school, they already have too many children, or they want the child to live in a two-parent household. Once a woman decides she wants to place her child for adoption, the question becomes, how does she try to put her child in the hands of another family? For example, who should she talk to, and how does she get a family to take her child? Could she simply find a random person on the streets and give the baby to them? For women who are not particularly familiar with the adoption process, these questions could become very relevant. For people who don't want to go through the process of putting their baby up for adoption, they may be tempted to simply leave the baby in a church somewhere and hope that a good-hearted person would find them. However, is this actually legal? The answer is no. Parents who do this to their children may be charged with child abandonment or child abuse. Child abandonment is defined as leaving a child somewhere and not having the intention to return for them. This includes leaving the child in a church, a doorstep, or a trash can. In most states, child abandonment and child abuse laws are connected, and those crimes are considered a felony. Such incidents are required to be reported by medical personnel, teachers, counselors, and other professionals that deal with children. It cannot be understated that abandonment causes the child great emotional harm. It makes them feel unwanted and worthless. Experts in child psychology have found that for the child, abandonment is more about the parent's absence and failure to communicate than financial issues. The child may think it is their fault that they are abandoned and harbor feelings of shame and guilt. Due to the fact that emotional abandonment can cause a lifetime of issues for the child, the court takes it very seriously. Even if the child is not physically hurt by the abandonment, the parents may still be penalized. Fortunately, it is actually very easy to place a child for adoption. Although many people may think that adoption is expensive, the truth is that there are plenty of websites and agencies that are willing to provide resources for women who are about to give birth so they can eliminate the cost of pregnancy. The financial assistance can cover rent and utilities, groceries, transportation, and maternity clothing and other things. Each state has its own laws regarding financial assistance for prospective birth parents. Women can talk to an adoption professional to learn what she is eligible for. This means that all the woman has to do is to follow a few simple steps to put her baby up for adoption. The first step is finding an adoption professional. This step is probably the most important because the adoption professional is there to guide the woman through the whole adoption process. For this reason, it is also important that the woman find a professional that she is comfortable with. A national adoption agency can provide a ton of information on adoptions, and their services are vast. A prospective birth mother can get everything she needs from these agencies. Some prominent ones are American Adoptions, Gladney Center for Adoption, and Bethany Christian Services. Just because a woman contacts an adoption agency, it doesn't mean that she is obligated to choose adoption. She can take some time deciding whether or not that is the right path for her. After finding an adoption professional, the next step is to fill out a form that states the adoption's preferences. This form will contain all the details of the adoption. This adoption plan lets the hospital know which families to look for and the mother's contact with the child after the adoption. This form includes the preferences for an adoptive family. It is important to know that adoption professionals work with many families from across the country. So no matter what the preferences are, the professional can easily find ample potential families. Another thing the plan includes is the type of contact after adoption. These type of contacts can be open, closed, or semi-open. There are benefits to each type. The plan includes preferences for the hospital stay as well. If the woman needs help creating an adoption plan, the professional will be available to help her. The professional can also help update the plan whenever the woman wishes it. At this step, it is time to start thinking about finding an adoptive family. From the details in the adoption plan, the adoption professional will give the woman a list of potential families known as adoptive family profiles. The professional will keep sending profiles until the woman finds the perfect family. Some important considerations the woman might have is how far away the family lives, whether or not the family already has children, and whether or not the family have the same cultural and religious background as the woman. Some women may want the family to live closer to it, so it would be easier to make in-person visits. And some women may prefer couples who are eagerly waiting for their first child instead of a family that already has children. Once the woman has found the perfect family, it is important to contact them to know them better. This can be done with emails, phone calls, video calls, and in-person visits. Before the baby is given up for adoption, a hospital plan needs to be established. The plan includes how much time the woman wants to spend with the baby, who will be the first person to hold the baby, and more. Once the plan is created, social workers will distribute it to the adoptive family and hospital staff. Often, the woman's attorney and adoption professional will go over the consent to adoption and termination of parental rights. The consent form is the most important in the adoption process and requires the most thought. Once the woman signs her consent and the revocation period has passed, she cannot change her mind later. After the child has been given away, it does not mean that the former parents will not see them again before the adoption. Parents can choose 3 different styles of adoption. One is open adoption. This type of adoption is the most free and flexible. The prospective birth mother can have as much contact with the child and adoptive family as possible. Closed adoption. The birth parents and the adoptive family do not know each other. After giving up the child for adoption, the birth mother does not have contact with the child or adoptive family. The identities of everyone in the adoption are kept confidential. The baby gets a new certificate and the original is sealed. This type of adoption is not as common as it once was. It could be problematic if the baby develops health issues later in life because the birth records of the baby would not be accessible. The other one is semi-open adoption. This type of adoption has benefits of both open and closed adoptions. The woman can have as much privacy as she needs while still developing a relationship with the child and the adoptive family. When we talk about the adoption process, it is usually for newborns or babies under 1 year old. However, older children that are over the age of 5 can also be put up for adoption. However, creating adoption plan for older children is harder than placing younger children or newborns for adoption. As children grow older, there are fewer adoption agencies and professionals who are equipped to handle the adoption process in an ideal way. Additionally, the transition that comes with adoption is much more difficult for a child to cope with as they age. There are fewer families looking to take in a 12-year-old than families seeking to adopt newborns. For example, it would be hard to place an 8-year-old for adoption not only due to the lack of potential adoptive families, but also because the child has time to bond with their parents, and a sudden change will be emotionally upsetting for the child. Some agencies, such as American Adoptions, will not provide services for children who are older than 5, which is another reason that placing older children for adoption is difficult. Fortunately, it might not be necessary to place these children for adoption, as there are resources that can make parenting easier, such as social services, women, infant, and children, Medicaid, and others. A big challenge to placing children for adoption is the stigma surrounding it. The stigma surrounding adoption may have come from outdated societal norms and a lack of knowledge about the adoption process. A huge misconception about adopted children is that they are second best to biological children and that they come with a host of issues. This misconception can lead to an unfair labeling of adopted children as damaged or troubled. Birth mothers are stigmatized due to their decision to place their child for adoption. People may think that they are abandoning their children by giving them up. Adoptive parents are judged for their decision to adopt a child. Some people may question their ability to love an adopted child as much as a biological one. Adoptive parents are also questioned for their ability to raise a child. The negative attitude towards adoption may discourage families from seeking to adopt any children. Even though adoption might not be a problem financially, since there are many resources available, it is definitely emotionally difficult. Most birth parents go through a grief process while making adoption plan and after placing their child for adoption. It is common to experience feelings of anger, shock, sadness, fear, guilt, and more. Although with open adoption plans, it may be possible to reduce the amount of grief. Here is what some birth mothers said about adoption. From what they have said, you can tell that it was emotionally very difficult for them, but they were still brave enough to move forward with it. Here is a word search. You can pause the video if you want to take a shot at it. Okay. Here's a quiz. You can pause the video if you want to give it a try. And here are the answers to quiz. If you got a 10 out of 10, you did great. If you got 6 to 9 out of 10, it was nice. But if you got less than 6, you might need to rewatch the presentation. And for more information about adoption, you can visit this website. And here's the word search. That's it. Thanks for watching.